Welcome to the Create Your Happy podcast, where conscious female creators come together with a shared vision to inspire and empower women as they learn how to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and collaborate on how together we can change the world. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness coach and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Welcome to this week's episode of the Create Your Happy podcast. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness hussy in the house. And today I have with me Brianna Hosack, aligned impact coach and local friend of mine here in Alberta. So welcome to the show, Brianna. I would love to invite you to tell us a little bit more about your journey, your story, and what led you to become an aligned impact coach. And maybe even let us know a little bit more about what an aligned impact coach is for anyone who might not be overly familiar with those words.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, by the way. And I am Brianna Hosack. I am a single mom of 3, and I am very passionate about empowering women. And so I have, as far as the aligned impact goes, aligned impact meaning that we all have a purpose to fulfill in this life. And we are, we're given our passions and our dreams and our skills, even our talents, our natural talents for a reason. That's what I believe. And so we all have an impact to make. And I believe that when people are in alignment, they are able to really explode that impact and make it just so much bigger. And so when it comes to alignment, that just is knowing what you're passionate about, being this. I've actually never described like what does aligned impact mean. So this is good actually. So the whole idea is to be in alignment with your inner self, with what feels good to you in your life. And when you're following that alignment, the impact that you're going to create is a lot bigger. And I do think that it's really important for us to do that, especially women. That is kind of like, that's my passion, my zone, right? Is helping women to get into alignment so that they are fulfilling those pieces of their purpose and being able to follow their dreams. So does that make sense as far as the aligned impact goes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like the way I look at aligned is pretty much exactly like you described too. It's really knowing yourself well enough to know what is and isn't for you. And when you have that clarity, woo, now you can really start, making some progress and creating the life that feels so good and fulfilling, which is, your birthright. That's your purpose for being here, is to live and create the life that you truly desire. So absolutely, that totally makes sense. Okay, now let's dive into a little bit more about your personal journey, because I think ultimately when we look back, we can always kind of see those pieces of our journeys that really shaped us and brought us to this point. And I know we probably don't have time to do all of the details and all of the things that shaped you, but a few highlights for our listeners so we can get to know a little bit about where you've come from.
Sure. So I grew up in a very abusive physically and emotionally home and a very strict religious environment. And at the same time. So as much as I feel that those contradict each other, it just was the way that it was. So
fortunately.
Yeah. So I grew up with, the man is always right. The man is in charge. God is a male figure meant to be feared, all of these things. And I wound up in unhealthy relationships as I got older. So, some not so bad as others. My most recent, my husband, soon to be ex-husband, was a narcissist, an absolute and I don't say that lightly. Like, I know some people are like, well, we all have a little bit of narcissism and all of this. And no, he was a full-blown narcissist. And so I thought that things were fantastic. It's actually really a little bit sad and a little bit funny when I look back at like talking to family members and friends when we first met. And I'm like, he's amazing. He's this, that, and the other thing, right? And really what it boiled down to was that I didn't have the sense of self-worth and self-knowledge to be aware of how unhealthy our relationship was.
Right.
Right. And so I would talk to my mom and she was like, "Oh, he sounds amazing." And it was things like he would complete a task at home that blew her mind. So my dad was he would start a million projects and never finish them.
Low standards.
Where my husband, yeah, exactly. And so it was, oh, he finished that quickly. Like one time my mom and I went and got garden mix stuff to dump into our garden for him to rototill in. And before we even got outside with the seeds, he was done rototilling. Like he just does it. He does it quickly. He's very efficient, all of these kinds of things. And it was like mind blown. She was like, he's amazing.
These qualities
but behind closed doors
make a good man though, do they? Right?
Exactly.
We'll get into that.
And you know what? There are parts of him where he is a good man. He wants to help people. He is generous with his time and money and, things like this. So there were things that drew me in, obviously. It's not like he was just a horrible human being. But when it came to being in a relationship with him and trying to meet his needs and satisfy his expectations, it was impossible. And so I struggled and strived and whatever, all of these things for years, and felt worse and worse and worse about myself, feeling like a failure and like I couldn't do good enough, until I finally started onto my personal development journey and started working on my own self-worth and stuff, and got to the point where I realized, like, this is bullshit. Like, this is actually not okay. And like, how have I been this blind? And it was heartbreaking for me because I had one child before he and I met. And so my daughter, we moved in with him when she was about 3, or just about 3, or had just turned 3. And he was so hard on her, like so strict with her. And my expectations were trying to keep up with his, I guess. And so I started because I wasn't even aware of how inappropriate it was. And I will also add the caveat, like, I was majorly depressed throughout this whole period of time. So I was very unaware of how unhealthy everything was. But he was very, very strict with her, very demanding with her, and basically expected her to be able to keep up with and behave like an adult from a very young age. And
which is very unrealistic.
Very unrealistic. And her being my first child, and he didn't have any other children either. But I, again, was like so depressed and so out of it, kind of, as far as life goes, that I didn't realize how bad that was. And it kind of got to the point where, he was expecting so much of her that she gave up. She stopped trying because she just felt like she couldn't do right anyways.
I've had that experience myself where I've got to the point where I have given up too, being in that situation. And I love the way that you're describing this. I have this sort of analogy that I have used in storytelling this part of my story, and that, sometimes you're driving home from somewhere and you get home, but you don't remember the drive, and you think, oh my God, I hope I stopped at the stop. But I was on autopilot. My mind was somewhere else. And I got like, holy shit, how did I get home? Because I don't remember the drive. And for me, that was how I come to realize, how did I get here in my relationship? Because I do not remember all of those pieces being so obvious to lead me to this place. It was like all of a sudden, like, whoa, my eyes have been opened.
How could I not have noticed, right? How could I have missed this?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I actually had, so this is a little bit maybe more woo than some people are used to, but I'm a certified level 1 shamanic practitioner. And I actually had my shamanic teacher did a journey for me to retrieve a soul piece. Okay. So in shamanism, when you have a traumatic experience in your life, or something along those lines, a fragment of your soul can kind of like break off and get lost. And so they do soul retrievals. And so she did one for me, and actually the piece that she found for me, I had hidden from myself, I guess you could say, right around when my son was born. So my first child with him. And that was when I had become aware of the situation. And I was like, I can't be aware of this because if I am, I just had a baby. I'm postpartum depression, like all of this. And it was just like, I can't handle it. So I locked her away, kind of thing. And I won't go into like too much detail of that. But when I remembered that, I was like, oh my goodness. I had actually like blocked that part of myself out so that I wasn't aware of it.
Right.
And that was upsetting in and of itself. I was really upset with myself when I found that out, because I was like, that's years of like suffering for my oldest, for my daughter. That's years of suffering for me. That's years of my son being exposed to how to treat women, things like this. And when I became aware of it, there was a lot of guilt that I had to work through. Right. Just, and even from before that point, but where it was just like, how could I not have realized?
Your brain was protecting you for what you
exactly
think you could handle. And so we gotta just wrap ourselves in compassion and love for those circumstances, because we're not doing it on purpose. Our brain is actually jumping in to be like, oh, that's a bit much. Let's just tuck
like you're going to have a mental breakdown and not be able to provide for your son and like take care of your son if you think about this right now. So put that away. And I have gotten to the point now where I'm like, okay, I understand that. And I've, done that kind of work around that. But it was very upsetting to me when I thought, like, how could I have like chosen that, that I would stay with him despite knowing. And there's also the side of it where I don't regret it, because I have two beautiful children from that relationship, and they are amazing, and I would never not want to have them. And thankfully, as I have come into, like I said, I started this personal development journey a few years back, and then I came into this spiritual awakening piece of it that is like so much more transformative. And it's actually been really helpful and powerful, because as I learn, I'm able to teach my kids, right? And so my oldest daughter is 12, and she is old enough to understand these things as I am kind of processing through them and learning them and all of this. And so I'm able to pass them on to her before she has like these lifetime worth of traumas, although her lifetime, but it's at least shorter, like not really a big chunk of her overall life, hopefully, right?
And the skills to cope with it, right? Because
exactly.
We've all got the trauma, but the problem is that we don't have the right skills or resources or understandings to process and move through it. That's where we get the sticky.
Exactly. And sometimes the awareness, right? Like that's a big piece of it, is the awareness, like you said, for yourself, and same for me. And it's just, knowledge is power. I always say that knowledge is power. And so the more that we learn and the more that we can teach our kids about this kind of stuff, the more power they have in their hands to do better going forward, to have a better life going forward, all of that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I've experienced extreme versions of what the patriarchy can look like as far as life goes for women. And so as I have really dived into personal development and spiritual awakening and all of this stuff, it has become something really close to my heart to help empower other women around this, and to change the negative patterns, right, that are just running rampant still. We talk about equality, and feminism in and of itself, like it had good intentions, but it went too far the wrong way, I would have to say. And there's not a good balance. And so there's a lot of work to be done around that. And I'm very passionate about doing it and helping other women to do it as well, because this is not something that one person achieves. This is something that needs to happen collectively. Absolutely. And so that's kind of my short version.
So many things to dig into here, but let's let's talk briefly about the feminist thing and how and why that also actually is sort of feeding against feminine energy, because the feminist movement created this idea that we can have and do and be it all. And that in order to do that, we have to hustle. We have to prove ourselves. We have to work hard. And feminine energy is actually the energy of receiving, right? And so those things are kind of in contradiction. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts on all of that. And then we can shift into talking more about the patriarchy. Ugh, I get that from that audio book I listened to. Emily Nagoski, I think it was Burnout. And every time they mentioned the patriarchy, they'd go, the patriarchy. Ugh. And so in my head, I always do that. So share with me your thoughts on hustle, feminism, and feminine energy.
I have so much I can say about this. So as far as feminism goes, like I was mentioning before we started, my great grandmother actually was a big part of the feminist movement and getting women rights, to the point where she had a school named after her. So I think the intentions of the feminist movement were fantastic. The problem that they didn't foresee was that by giving women equal rights to men, they were adding on all the responsibilities that men have on top of all the responsibilities that women had already. And so basically we have it doubled up on us to provide financially to go to work every day. And yet still we are the childminders, the housekeepers, all of these pieces. And so it's actually very disempowering, because it just takes completely away from taking care of ourselves, from having deep connections with our children, from being able to take pride in managing a home and things like that, because it's just like a side thought, right? Like you just have to do it, and you're rushing through everything, and we're missing out on life.
It's really are. Long to-do list. Like it's so long.
Yeah, exactly.
We're fucking drowning in the length of the to-do list. The expectations are too high.
Exactly. And well, there's too many of them. Really. Like we can have high expectations for ourselves, but they need to be around certain things only, and not we have to be perfect at everything all the time, which is very much what the feminist movement brought forward, is because women are always trying to strive to prove that they are as good as men in the workforce. And then they're also still having to strive to keep up at home, because they actually care about all that stuff at home. And their kids, the disconnection, like don't even get me started on the disconnection it caused with kids by moms not being at home, by going out to work. The like not being able to be present with their kids caused so many issues as far as like morality goes, and just like a general sense of right and wrong and what matters in life, and all of these things. And that is so sad. And I think that women should be at home with their kids. And I don't think that that's a disempowering thing at all. I think that it's instead like the perspective on it. And I always try to like help change people's perspective around this, is like being at home with your kids is empowering. That is like, we are equal to men, but it's not about doing the same jobs as men. It's not about working as hard as men. It's not about all of that stuff. The divine feminine energy is very, inspired. And like you said, the receiving energy and the flowy energy and all of that stuff. And that doesn't mean that we as women don't have masculine energy, because we absolutely do. We can accomplish a hell of a lot in a very short period of time, right? And that's that do, go, go, go. And I will say, like, before my awakening, it was I had a very masculine energy, because I was always trying to keep up. And I mean, to the point, I worked in a concrete and like landscaping company. So I was actually, it has been so many years since I even thought about this. So in the actual facility where they made the stones for landscaping. And so I was like tossing these big heavy bricks and stones and whatever. And I'm like, I mean, I've gained a bit of weight now, but I'm not a big girl.
Yeah.
I was lifting slabs, like sidewalk blocks were the same weight I was.
Wow.
Okay. And I was moving these things. And I was like, I lost a lot of weight working there, like not a lot of, but like probably 20, 25 pounds even, from where I was like a healthy weight to where I was very underweight because I could not consume enough calories to keep up with how hard I was working.
Yeah.
And I had to prove myself. I had to be better than the guys in order to be equal to them. For them to accept me, I had to be better at it than they were. It wasn't even a matter of being as good at it as they were. It was a matter of being better. And that's because they have, and by they, I mean men in general, and this is a generalized statement. Of course, there are better men than this or that have been raised better, right? It's not so much that those men are not good people. It's just that they have not been taught, right? But in general, men have this inherent, like, I'm good enough no matter what kind of an attitude. And so at work, they can sit around and fuck the dog and not be considered lazy or not good enough. Yeah. But if I were to do that, it would be like, see, the woman can't keep up, all of this kind of stuff. And so I had to go nonstop while I was there. I drove forklift while I was there, and I had to be better at maneuvering that forklift than the men were. I had to be faster moving the stones. I actually ended up really injuring myself one time because of that. And it's not that I couldn't do that job. It's that the expectations of me, and not just by myself, by the men there as well, were higher than they were for the men in order for me to be considered their equal. And even then I was considered their equal, but I also received constant, what do you even call it? Not like sexual harassment. Man, no, sexual harassment. It really was. Like, what it is. And we get so conditioned to it that we don't even think that it's a problem. And it really was. It was a huge problem. And I'm only like now thinking of this where I'm like through the lens of what I've learned around like my relationship with my husband. And it's like, oh shit, no, that was actually really bad.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was more like I was taking it as a compliment when they were like hitting on me and catcalls and all of this kind of stuff, where now if somebody were to do that to me, I would lose my mind, right? Like not acceptable. Wow. Anyways, so that whole mentality that women are equal to men means that we have to do the same things that men do, and that we have to do it in the same energy that men do it, is the problem with feminism. So I am all for equal rights, yes, like voting and all of these kinds of things, of course. And I do not want to go back to the Stone Ages, right? Like that's not the point. It's just that it has to have that balance. And if women are going to have to take on being the breadwinners and have to take on leaving the home and leaving their kids, then there needs to be some give and take. So there was no, the feminist movement moved where women were on the ladder, but it didn't move where men were on the ladder. So it like brought us up, but it didn't bring them to the same level as us, where they then needed to do the child minding, where they needed to clean the house, where they needed to, all of these things. And again, not that men aren't capable of that, because they are. I know some who do it, right? It's just that most of them aren't expected to. They're not expected to learn it. They're not expected to care about it. They're not expected to notice it. And so if their wife is, working a full-time job, going out to away from her kids every day, and then still trying to come home and build those connections with her kids, still keeping the house clean, still doing all the cooking, still doing all of this stuff, and a man doesn't even notice it.
Ooh, the mental load. The mental load.
The mental load. Yeah, exactly.
Is like, it's squashing us. And the expectation to be the same as men, which is complete and utter bullshit, because obviously, look at us, we're not the same. There should never be an intention for us to be the same. But you're right, equality, where we are both looked at, men, women, and everyone in the spectrum in between are all worthy.
Valued for what they bring to the table.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we're equal, then the contributions that we make should be valued. And this is something that very much stands out to me because my husband, right before I left, so he knew I was leaving, and mornings were always awful for us. Okay, he was very emotionally and verbally abusive in the mornings before he left for work every day. And that's kind of what my kids woke up to every day, right? And the one day, so I actually recorded this one because my mom was like, marriage is for life and you need to stay, and all of these things, you need to do whatever you can to make it work. She didn't really have a concept of what our relationship really was like because it was never in front of people that it looked like that, right? And so I recorded it because I was like, I need her to stop saying that to me. It needs to stop, right? And so I was just like, here you go. And I showed it to her and she was like, oh my gosh, you deal with that every day? And I was like, yep. And he told me that I didn't contribute at all. I sat on the couch and did nothing. And at the time, not only was I doing all of the cleaning and child minding and making all of the appointments and making sure that everyone kept the appointments and getting everyone to and from the appointments and all the extracurriculars and everything. I also was running a day home out of my house 50 hours a week with, up to 6 other toddlers, not school aged yet, along with my own kids. And I was building my online coaching business at the same time and putting in a lot of hours because, again, that hustle culture, that mentality of like, I have to never stop, like I have to do this all now kind of thing. And that month that I left him, I actually had my highest earning month I had yet. And I earned quite a bit more than him that month. And he's a Red Seal heavy duty mechanic. So, it just put it into perspective. Like, I actually brought more to our financial situation this month than you did. And I did all the cleaning and child minding and all of that other stuff. And I am not having a mental breakdown and making it all land on your shoulders. And that in and of itself, right? It's not even like, I'm so awesome, I did all this stuff. It's like, that's really shitty that I had to do all that stuff. And then still will not be acknowledged for it. Yeah. Not even have like any sort of like, I appreciate you for what you do and for what you contribute. And I couldn't go, there's no way in hell, even if like he would have been fine with me spending the money, there never would have been a time frame where I could have like a window of time to go get my hair done, to go do anything along those lines, right? I have never, even still yet to this day, been to a professional hair salon and like had my hair done, cut, dyed, whatever. Like and actually I will say, like, he tried to get me a thing once for that. And I thought that it would cover my daughter and myself, and it only covered hers. And so I used it up on her. But literally that was it, right? It was every cent that I earned went to the family. And I did everything else. And I still got told that I was not contributing. Because when he was there, when the kids were sleeping, either in the evenings or in the mornings, he saw me on my computer working on my online business. And he called that an MLM that day, which is, nothing against MLMs, but my coaching business is not an MLM. And like, he just had no concept of what I was doing, and he wouldn't listen to hear what it was and didn't care. And, all of this stuff. And this isn't so much for me to sit here and like complain about how awful I had it. It's just that this is so pervasive. It's really not even just me, right? It's the friends that I talked to about it were like, yeah, like either they had left their husbands as well and had been there, or they were like, I deal with that every day. Like, what? Why is that a problem, right? And they just couldn't even, they couldn't even grasp it. And as I told more and more of my story online, like hundreds of women just being like, yes, thank you. Why does nobody ever talk about this? And it was like, oh, you're right. Like, nobody does talk about this. And I guess I should, because I'm not afraid to say what the fuck is on my mind. So like,
And
I will start talking about it, I guess. And
because these, I'm going to say bad behaviors, because it's not bad people, it's just bad behaviors,
yes,
are normalized. And we're told that marriage is hard. And so what do? We encompass all of that bad behavior into, oh, well, marriage is just hard. I've heard marriage is hard. And, so as women, we tend to take a lot of this abuse and normalize it under the guise that, well, marriage is hard, or they're working really hard and they're having a bad day, so we'll justify it. And I'll tell you what, slippery fucking slope to ending up finding yourself not knowing how you got here, because it's so insidious.
And not even knowing who you are. You don't even know who you are anymore. You've sacrificed everything about yourself to motherhood and wifehood and all of these things. And it is so messed up. It's so messed up. I had no idea who I was.
The weight of the mental load actually keeps us from having the energy to go looking for who we are too. So it can really keep us trapped in this cycle. Right. And so we're like, well, I know when I was there, I was like, this isn't great, but like, it could be worse. That kind of justification. It could
he could be punching me in the face. Like,
right. It could be worse. And so at the same time, it could be better. So if you're listening and you're dealing with any kinds of things, or if you're listening and your finances mean you have to go to work, none of this means anything about you. Okay. So we just want you to know that there is hope for a better way, that instead of normalizing this any longer, we want to speak up so that it's not normalized, so that the voices of women are actually heard, and that we can start moving towards a more balanced approach. So, not the patriarchy where women are, not worthwhile at all. And maybe not even the flip side to a matriarchy, but somewhere balanced in the middle where we're all just living as humans, right? We're all contributing based on our gifts, our unique strengths and weaknesses, instead of playing into the patriarchal normalized actions and behaviors that we're expected to do, and letting go of the capitalist rules and everything else too, because that's another sort of
corporate mindset.
We don't have time to go into that, but just all that to say, right? we can come to a place of more balance and bring the feminine and masculine. Both of those are worthy and worthwhile energies, and we have them both. It's just a matter of finding the right balance and then using that, to make an impact in the world, because we can't, as mothers, do it all the time. Okay. We absolutely are capable of doing all of the things, but we want to be careful.
And here's the thing. We've gotten so damn good at doing it all that they keep adding more. They keep adding more to us. And that's why it's gotten to the point now where women are like, enough is enough. And it's time to start speaking up, right? Because it's like, oh, well, you're handling that. Great. I'll give you more. And, we could go into like, that says a lot about how much men can handle because they're not handling all of that. And if we added more, they'll flip out. Right. But it's like, no, yes, it's okay. If you need, like you said, if finances mean that you have to go to work, like that's not what this is about. This is not like, making women wrong or bad for having to work outside the home. When I say that I think that moms should be at home, I mean, they should be empowered to be at home. They should be able to be at home. I think it should be their choice. Absolutely. But I think that they should be able to stay home. And like the way that I help them to do that is by getting into alignment so that they are, following their passions and everything while being at home with their kids. And so they're able to still, bring in an income, make an impact in the world aside from raising their kids, right? Because of course that has an impact. Of course, everything that we do has an impact. And I get this a lot when I talk to people. It's like, well, we all make an impact every day. Everything that we do makes an impact. And it's like, yes, of course it does. I'm talking big. I'm talking like when you follow what you were inherently given when you were born, you make a different kind of impact. And it is really important. The impact that women have to make is very different from the impact that men have to make, because we have that feminine aspect where we are thinking of like the magic and how can we make this better, and it's a constant improvement and like being able to receive those messages, right, of how could I do this in a better way, and how could I do this more easily, and what would be the kindest way to do this, what is the most open-hearted approach, right? This is the kind of ways that women think naturally when they haven't had it, trained into their brain to be in that hustle mentality. But it is really important for us to find our way back to ourselves, to be empowered to do that, to have the space to do that. And for those of you who are, stay-at-home moms who really value that, like, all the respect, that is not easy either. And just because I stay at home and work doesn't mean that to me, I still get to have contact with other adults during the day. And like, I've done the stay-at-home mom thing too, and it is hard. It's hard having to just be on a kid level all day, and then have your husband come home and expect, or your partner, doesn't have to be a husband, have them expect you to be in a certain mood and be available for their emotional dump of their day, and all of this. And there's no one right way, one wrong way. Like, it's not that at all. Everybody has a different situation, and what really matters is that people start being valued for what they have to contribute, and have the ability to contribute the things that they value as well. Like, so kind of switching that around, like, we were given our passions, we were given what matters to us for a reason. And when we're allowed to focus on that, and when no matter what we do, we're considered to be bringing value, it changes everything. Because all of a sudden, we're open to magic. We're open to, and by magic, I don't mean like Harry Potter. I mean, like, things really can change. Things can improve. Things can get better.
Transformation.
All of it.
Alchemizing.
Transformation, exactly.
Right? And it's not about finding the way. It's about finding your way, right? And like you said, the empowered choice.
Yes.
Knowing that we can make the choice makes all the difference. And it's better if we don't have to get to the point where your daughter did, where she just can't keep up with this anymore. And so she's like, I'm out, I can't. Mm-hmm. If we get to that point, it's actually a really transformational point. That was the point where I got to, where I realized, oh my God, nothing I can do will ever, ever, ever be good enough. And I just can't keep striving and trying for an impossible goal. And so if that is speaking to anyone else, I want to encourage you that, we want to just send you some extra love and some reminders that it's not about finding the way. It's about finding your way, and your way is your path to your freedom. So I want to encourage you to take some baby steps in that direction, do some self-discovery, ask the difficult questions of yourself, or get a guide or mentor or coach, or, someone who can help you unpack that, a therapist. That's what I was wanting to add in there. And just take the steps, because you are so worthy and you are so deserving of having a life that you absolutely fucking love, along with the relationships, the business, or the impact and the health that you desire. It's all waiting for you.
Yep.
I would love for you to share any exciting offers or ways that people can work with you, and as well, where can they most easily get in touch with you?
So Facebook is my go-to, other than my website. I just can't do all the millions of different platforms, but Facebook is my main focus. I have a group on Facebook, which is, I know I'm tooting my own horn, but it is amazing. The connections that are being built in there, women empowering women, and true friendships, not like you can't create a community. It happens organically, right? And I tried to create a community, and I tried to set it up in a way that it could unfold that way. And thankfully it did. And I have had so many women like in tears and grateful and all of this stuff, because it's, especially if you work online. So I mainly work with entrepreneur women. And so when you work online from home and you just have your kids at home and all of this, it can be very isolating. And so a lot of the time what I was hearing was, I have no friends. I have nobody who gets me. Like if I do have friends, they don't get the entrepreneurship part. Or if I do have friends, they don't get this, or, and so it was like, I have no friends who get me. And so I created this space where people can come together and actually build real friendships. And just like, it's amazing. It's really amazing. I'm so proud of it. And that is absolutely like my favorite place online to be because of that. It is fantastic. As far as exciting offers go, I have really started leaning into this spiritual, feminine, divine feminine thing. And right now I am getting ready to kick off a mastermind specifically for women who are actively trying to, or want to be actively trying to, raise the conscious awareness of all of this kind of stuff and bring in more of that divine feminine and like just this ascension thing that really I feel is happening globally anyways. And I just like, I'm contributing to it. The women that are coming into this mastermind are contributing to it. And it's not just about like talking about these things is really important, but the purpose of this mastermind is actually to start taking the actions and start making the changes. And it's going to be so powerful. And I'm super, super excited about it. So that is kind of my main focus right now. People can also, like, I do oracle card readings, love doing those. Those are lots of fun. I do a few private readings a week, like not too much. And then I do one-on-one coaching. So if you are trying to figure out who you are, get into alignment, find the balance in your life. I don't always put it in my title, aligned impact and productivity coach. So I'm taking out the productivity thing just because it's not like my main focus. But when it comes to productivity and time management, that has been my focus for a really long time. So helping moms balance all of these pieces, I'm really, really damn good at that. So if you are trying to get into alignment in your life and get to the point where you know who you are, you know what you want to do, you've worked on the relationships that were holding you back, you've got the time management under control so that you have white space on your calendar where you can actually fit in these extras, all of that. That is what I do with women. And I help them to put all of those pieces together and then bring in their passion and add it to it. And it just, instead of, I know it can sound really overwhelming, but instead of being overwhelming, it's actually so empowering and it feels amazing when you do it.
Yeah. And, I think touching back on one of the things that you mentioned there, I think community is a big piece of what's missing in society, North American society, especially. I can honestly can't comment globally, but we are very much driven away from community. And especially, I feel like the feminist movement also contributed to the separation of
Big
that
time.
as well. And so this community, this sisterhood, first of all, and we also have a lot of wounding around sisterhood and all of this from past generations, which we are carrying within our genetics. That's a whole nother topic. But as we're moving forward, carefully involving ourselves in some supportive communities can really make a huge difference. So I do want to encourage you to find the people who get you. And on the recent episode about people pleasing, we talked about this a little bit too, because you've got to show up as you to find your people, right? So that means no more mask wearing, no more people pleasing, no more trying to be, meet the expectations or people please or be someone you're not. It means showing up fully, authentically as yourself. All right. As we wrap up the episode, I would love for you to share a very quick tip or exercise to encourage our listeners to get out there and get a little bit more balanced in their feminine. Perhaps let's bring some of that feminine energy back in so that we can find a place of more balance. So hit me with what you've got.
All right. So this one seems like it's a little bit out of left field, but I call it rewilding. And it is because nature, and by this I mean like Mother Nature, going outside, is very, very tied in with feminine energy. And that is because feminine energy is very natural and flowy and not controlled in the way that masculine energy is. And just like nature is not controlled and it just goes the way it's going to go, that is very similar with the feminine energy. And so my best tip is to go outside. Go the fuck outside. And it is like, and you know, we spend so much time on our screens and in offices and things like this, and we do not get nearly enough time in nature. Neither do our kids. Don't even get me started on that. But it is so important for us to reconnect with nature. And this is actually probably the fastest way to reconnect with yourself and figure out who you are, is to go outside. So by going outside, I don't mean like, you know, go for a walk around the block and then go back inside. I mean like go sit outside, put your hands and feet in the dirt and in the grass and touch different plants and watch animals do their thing and all of this, and just get quiet. So one thing that we never really do, or not never, but a lot of people in this hustle culture are not doing, is slowing down and actually noticing and being present in the moment. And so going out in nature without your screens. Okay. If you want to bring your phone for pictures, but do not, well, or like, you know, whatever, if you want it for your camera, I do bring my phone just because I love to take pictures. Yeah. But do not be on your phone scrolling out in nature, because that's stupid. Just
you're missing the real show.
Outside. Exactly. Just be present where you are. Go out there, notice colors, notice textures on plants, notice, and like be really deliberate about it. And the way that people can start to do this, because it can feel very like empty and like, what the hell am I doing? And you know, I'm just standing here. This is stupid. Like that's honestly how it feels at first, is to literally go outside and just find something that gives you a sense of awe. Okay. AWE, like a sense of wonder, where you are like, wow, that is really incredible. So go outside until you find something that gives you that sense of wonder. And then when you notice something that gives you that sense of wonder, stop and sit with it for a minute and just let it sink in. That is, and obviously there's like a whole bunch of steps in between to fully rediscovering yourself and connecting with your feminine energy and all of that. But that is a really, really good first step to practice being present and noticing the little things in life, which are actually the most important. So,
and I'll tell you what, with a practice like that, you can take your life from black and white to sepia to vibrant color just by noticing and being mindful. So that is a fantastic tip. I want to thank you so much for sharing this incredible conversation with me today, for sharing your wisdom and your nuggets. I hope that our audience is going to be really inspired, and maybe we'll have a slight shift in perspective out of this conversation today. That is always my intention with the show. So I hope that is the case for you. I would love to hear some feedback from the listeners. So please feel free to reach out anytime. We'll catch you in the next episode. But for now, I love you. Now let's go do some epic shit, shall we? Mwah!
Thanks, Christy.
Are you tired of feeling burnt out and overwhelmed by trying to please everyone else? Do you find yourself constantly putting other people's needs ahead of your own, leaving you feeling unfulfilled and resentful? Break free from the cycle of people-pleasing and take back control of your life. Learn how to identify and break free from the patterns of people-pleasing that are holding you back. Learn practical tools and strategies to set healthy boundaries and prioritize your own needs so that you can find a sense of peace and fulfillment in your life. Imagine waking up each day feeling energized and excited about your life. Imagine living life on your own terms. Don't wait any longer to take control of your life and find true happiness. The Path to True Happiness and Authenticity, a masterclass for people pleasers. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I trust you were inspired to take back your power and create your happy. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. If you'd like to connect with myself and/or today's guest, you can find those details in the show notes. We would love to hear from you. If you've got an inspiring story to share, you can also apply to be a guest on the show at createyourhappy.ca. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.